IGN's Comic-Con coverage brought to you by Death Race. In theaters August 22nd.
You get asked a lot about the mythology of Lost, and how much do they even tell you?
Not much. And, I don't get asked that much, really, honestly. It feels like I used to get asked a lot. I don't know. People seem to be sort of just kind of not so anxious to get answers to the show now, because I think that maybe they feel that the answers are coming sooner, and so they don't feel like such a maddening sense of like, oh my God, I got to know where the show is going. I think the show, we've told really about 2/3 of the story. Even more than that, 3/4 of the story if you do an episodic count and how many we have left. So I think they're starting to have trust and faith in, sort of like if you're reading an incredibly good book and you're 3/4 of the way through, you're not so tempted, I think, to sort of jump to the end. You're like, oh, and then you start savoring it and you start feeling the momentum of the book. And I think in the first couple of years, they were like a lot of readers who are jumping into a book that's sort of blowing their minds, and they're like, I can't even deal with how much book I have to read here if I don't have some concept that it's heading somewhere. Right. So I don't think I get asked, that much anymore.
Now, a lot of actors on Lost have said that they like the idea that David and Carlton have projected this end. They have this end point in mind. Is it sort of frustrating to know that they know, and do you want to know where it's headed, or?
No, I've really always had. I love to read. I love the feeling of having a story that I'm really into, a book that I'm really into, scripts I'm really into, where I'm patient and I just wait for the next installment. And I've always been that way with Lost, and I've never really felt any anxiety about finding out more ahead of time, other than to the degree that I knew what I had to know for Jack. Obviously, there have been moments where I was like, I'm going to have to know that for Jack. I think it makes playing the characters easy if you don't have to unlearn things, I kind of, as an actor, always want to approach material from, I just want to only know the story to the degree that the character would have to know it, particularly on a series of television. Film is a little bit of a different approach, but...
Now, you've kind of made a name for yourself, or at least in my watching the work that you've done, is being very intensely emotional, whether it was on Party of Five, and there's the scene at the end of We Are Marshall, and is there something that you've developed along the way, a sort of a shorthand, or how do you get to those places?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just, acting for me is what I think acting is for anyone who tries to take on the craft. In the end, it's empathizing with the character that you're playing to the extent that you become the character. You're creating a what if and deeply empathizing with that person and who they are and what they want and the tools that they might use to go about getting it. And for me, that always, in very extreme circumstances, I find myself, if you look at the work that I've been asked to do on Lost or Party of Five, some of the, I think it requires that kind of, it feels realistic to me. It feels alive and real.
Now, is there anything like that I know you can't tell anything that's coming up, but is there some stuff that you're really eager to do that is coming up that you can kind of vaguely hint at?
I'm just really excited for the year and the rest of Lost in general, because I feel that the first 4 seasons of Lost have taken Jack to the point that we find him in standing over the coffin, and that the final 2 years will be lifting him out of that. So for me, the 4 years were sort of like taking him down into this pit of despair, and that the next 2 years will be pulling him out of that. And so for me, it feels like I'm seeing light at the end of the tunnel, not just in a time frame, because that's not really it. It's sort of an emotional lifting of his own need to put everything in order and hammer home a sense of logic and reason and control. And finally, he will be able to take the breath of sort of falling off the cliff and not knowing, and knowing that there's something larger than himself. And I think there can't help but to be a feeling freedom in that, and a feeling of hope. And so I think it's going to be a really, really interesting, and I'm going to get to do a lot of new things.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that Jack's going to be a different person, but he will have a different point of view.
And now, knowing there's an end point, have you thought much about letting Jack go at the end?
I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I mean, there's a lot of really cool storytelling between now and then, and very much looking forward to that. And I sometimes imagine what my life is going to be like sometime down the road when Lost is over. But I'm really very happy. I'm having a great time right now, and I also have time to get involved in other projects, which has been incredibly rewarding and exciting, and I'm enjoying them, and so I'm feeling in a really good place in my life.